Welcome back to the Invisible to Invincible podcast, where we shine a light on stories and strategies that transform the unseen to the unforgettable. I'm your host, Kendra Losee, and today we have a truly extraordinary guest who embodies the essence of our podcast mission. She's a former corporate aviation expert turned podcasting powerhouse and the author of the groundbreaking book, How to Get on Podcasts. Michelle Glogovac is here to share her incredible journey from navigating the complexities of the aviation world to launching the MLG Collective, a platform dedicated to amplifying voices and stories that inspire and motivate. Today, we're diving deep into the art of storytelling, the transformative impact of podcasts, and the secrets behind becoming an unforgettable guest on any show. So get ready to be inspired, to learn, and to start your journey towards making your voice heard. Let's welcome Michelle Glogovac to the show. Welcome, Michelle. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm already flubbing up my words.
It happens, and it might just be one of those days, and if so, that's okay. We all have them. I really want to thank you for being here. I was really excited when I found you and you reached out because this is what you do. You do podcasting and help other people be great on podcasting. So let's talk about it today.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope that's what I do is make them great on podcasts. My whole goal is to have them share their stories and to help educate, inspire, and motivate those who are listening. And I feel that podcasts are just the most perfect platform for everything. I feel that as corny and woo-woo as it sounds, podcasts have the power to change the world because they're free and they allow us to build empathy, to listen to the stories of others, to be educated on topics that we might not otherwise get to hear about, and really to get to know one another and people that we wouldn't learn anything about if we met them on the sidewalk or at the cafe.
You're absolutely right. And I have so many things I want to talk to you about today that I'm very excited. But to start out, let's back up a little bit. How did you even get into podcasting?
So I was laid off, much like you, from my corporate job. And it was a time where I had 2 kids under the age of 2. And I was sick and tired of traveling all around. My husband's I was in corporate aviation, and my husband also is. And so we would end up at the same place at the same time and have to figure out childcare because we had to be there for our jobs. And so by then, when I was laid off, I went, great. What can I do that allows me to not have to run on that hamster wheel, travel all the time, stay at home with my kids, provide a financial contribution to the household? What is it that I can do? And this is my moment to figure that out. And I did first dabble in like social media and marketing, managing, and event planning because I had done that in my corporate career and I didn't like it. And a woman from my birthing class of my son said, there's a podcast. It's starting out from this life and business coach. And I think you might enjoy it because she talks about finding your purpose and your passion. This was in 2018. I had no idea that the purple button on my phone was how you listen to a podcast. I knew what they were, but I'd never listened to one. So I started listening and I was like, yeah, I got to figure out what this purpose and this passion is. And I would put it on my Instagram of I'm listening and I'm trying to figure it out. And this is my journey. And she ended up reaching out to me and said, do you want to pitch me to be on other shows? Because you obviously resonate with what I'm putting out there. And I was like, that's a thing? Yes. And I started pitching her, but in the true form that I am, I needed to learn everything that there was about a podcast. So I started producing her show. I took a course on how to create a show. I launched my own show, but I fell in love with the pitching part because of what it allows us to do for others, for ourselves. And there's that personal aspect of being able to change someone's life and share your story and your knowledge. And at the same time, elevate yourself and your business and your brand. So I love that it's something free people get to listen to. It just makes it accessible to everybody.
That is amazing. As someone who has been laid off 6 times and used each time as a chance to like, what do I want to do? Where's that purpose? What am I interested in? For me, when I looked at time number 3, I think 4, I was I switched from working with helping Tiffany sell more diamonds to education.
because I truly believe in the power of education and that that natural curiosity and learning and where it can take you, whether it is in the higher ed world or in personal learning journeys. And so what I love about what you're talking about is how you took it and said, okay, I can help change the world this way.
Yeah. And it sounds so big. And I feel there's a part of me that it's that non-confidence part of that sounds so big and lofty and hilarious that you think you're going to change the world. But I know that I am, because I hear what people say when they listen to the stories of my clients, when they listen to myself. I mean, thank goodness I have a great therapist, because I'm like, someone said that I inspired them. What is that about? That's what we need to unpack in this therapy session. But I know that it's helping people to hear these stories and to not only hear their stories, but then for me to be able to teach someone how to share their story, how to get on a podcast. And then it enables them to do the same thing. And I know it's making a difference. It's helping somebody out there.
And I think that's something that's so important, right? Like I talk to a lot of business owners who the question is, I don't have anything to say. My story's not any different. I wasn't, and this is something that always really bothered me about working in higher ed, is that they always wanted to go for the I was living in my car and now I'm doing X type of story. And if you don't have that kind of drastic turnaround story, a lot of times, a lot of people feel like their story's not worth telling.
And I think that's because we put so much emphasis on these types of stories. I was just thinking about this last week once again, because when Rachel Hollis made it big, and this woman was living off a dime and this is unreal. And then come to find out that no, her husband worked at Disney. And there's a lot of these kinds of stories that are twisted, and they make those of us who don't have those, I lived off a dime. And I'm not saying I lived off a dime. We were able, for me to, we also, when you get laid off, you get a severance package. So I was able to take some of that time to figure out what I wanted to do. And then we set financial goals of, okay, if I could make X amount, maybe I could cover the mortgage. Okay, great. That's the first goal. But so often we do look at these big pivots that have these stories and these higher arcs, and we think that's what we have to achieve in order to have a story to tell. The truth is, the majority of us are all more regular people, and people want to hear from people that they can relate to. Hearing that you had a dime left in your pocket, it's not as realistic, I think, as obviously she thought or others think. It's more realistic what you and I have been through. Yeah. And so as mundane as it may feel, or as much as we don't think that our stories are unique, these are the stories that people want to hear, because we're going to share our unique perspective and how we got through these situations in our own ways.
Absolutely. And I think that when you were just talking, I was thinking about the Humans of New York and how how that attracts people to that, because you see just one glimpse of one person and you find the people that you can relate to. And especially as AI has been taking over so much in terms of copy and how people are showing up through written word. It's things like podcasting, it's things like video that really help carry your message, because you're the one delivering it.
Exactly.
The world. Tell me how you decided to actually get started with your podcast. You talked about how she invited you, but what is that like mindset shift or confidence level? And what did you need to have in order to actually hit record, decide to do this?
I think for me, I've always come from the mindset of just try it. And you don't fail at anything if you simply try and you try your hardest. And so that's why I went at it with, let me see what it's like to edit something. Let me figure out what the process is to launch a show. Let me figure out what's the good and the bad of pitching somebody, and what's the right way to do it. And so I knew going in that as long as I tried my hardest, I wasn't going to fail. If I didn't enjoy it, that's not failing. It just means that it wasn't right for me. When like I said, I had tried event planning and social media management, and I was fine at it, but I didn't enjoy it. And I didn't consider those things failures. It was simply, let me just put myself out there, see what happens, and go from there. So my mindset was just to simply try, and nothing bad can happen if you try and give it your all. And then to figure out that I actually enjoyed what I was doing, really, it made the difference of, I like this, I'm good at it, and I'm going to stick at it. And now it's a full-blown agency, and I wrote a book about it. Not too shabby, I guess.
No, especially just in the last, 6 years?
Yeah,
Picking it up, learning it, becoming an expert, writing a book and sharing it with other people. No, yeah, that's phenomenal.
Thank you.
That is absolutely phenomenal and really inspiring, I think, to myself and to others who might be, or people who are listening who might not, who might be hesitating, who might not be sure about whether or not podcasting is for them, videos for them, showing up to support their business and showing up and putting their face on anything. Even I was talking to somebody the other day who doesn't want to even have pictures, who hates pictures of themselves on their website, let alone how their voice sounds, let alone seeing how they look on video. And
it's interesting that you say that, because the woman who took my author headshots, she's working on a book, and she told me it's actually backed science that I had no idea, that the way we see ourselves in a picture is unlike how anyone else sees us, because of the way that it's not the angle. There's something about a photo and how it reflects back to us versus others. And so what we see and what we may not like is not the same as anyone else sees. So for that person, I would say stop looking at yourself and being critical, because the world's not seeing you the way you see yourself.
That's really good advice. It's really funny. When I was writing I co-authored Digital Etiquette for Dummies, and I had a section on meeting etiquette and live streaming, right? Like those were two of the different sections that I had, as well as email and a couple others. But I was writing about, is it dysmorphia? Like the idea of Zoom and how you show up on camera, and how a lot of people spend the time staring at themselves versus looking at the camera or looking at the other people. And the editor was male, and he kept sending that section back, was like, that's not a thing. And so I sent him back with, here's 11 news articles and news stories about it. And he sent it back again. That's not a thing. And I was like, you have to understand that it is. You have to understand that it is. And that was the one thing in the book that I pushed back on when they tried to make changes to it. And then he said he walked down the hall and talked to surveyed a few different colleagues. And he said, all the women said absolutely.
Interesting.
The men were about 50-50. But every single woman he talked to said absolutely. And I thought that was...
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. It's a thing.
Yeah, it is. And so what, you just talked about that advice, but what advice do you give to your clients, or just someone who says, I've been thinking about starting a podcast, I'm not sure, I don't really have a story to tell?
Whether you start one or you're a guest on one, I feel it's important to figure out, what is it that you want to share? What is your story? What is the knowledge and the education? Simply start there. And then look at it from the perspective of, you need to help others. And so by not sharing your story or the knowledge that you have, you're doing a disservice to people who need to hear from you. And you won't be changing lives if you keep it all to yourself. Whereas if you hit record, if you show up as that podcast guest, you share of yourself openly and freely in just having a conversation with one other human being, now you have the potential to help listeners, to truly change the life of the business owner who didn't know how to market their business on social media, and now they have those initial steps, to the podcast host, the person who wanted to hit record and was like, I don't know. Now you just inspired them to hit record and to simply do that intro or their initial trailer. And I feel like if you have that power to make those changes to help others, then you owe it to the world to do it, to share of yourself. And don't think about the hundreds and the thousands who are going to listen. Think about the one person that you're having that conversation with. You only have to show up and talk to one person. You're not on a stage of thousands looking at you in the bright lights. It's one person. And so if you're just communicating with another human being, just as you would if you're at a coffee shop and you turned around and said, hey, I love your outfit, you spark up a conversation. Look at it from that perspective and how simple it can be to just have that conversation and to show up and give of yourself as freely as possible. I compare a podcast interview to a dinner party, and the host is your podcast host, and you've been invited into their home, their show. And how are you going to show up? You're going to turn your phone off. You're not going to be sitting there on doing your emails. You're going to converse with the other person. You're going to be engaging. And it's exactly the same on a podcast. You want to simply show up. You've got your phone in airplane mode, and you're just having a conversation. You're catching up on what is it you know? Where have you been? What have you done? How are you helping people? And look at it from that perspective. And it kind of takes the pressure off, I think, of, oh, I'm going to go on camera and record myself. And then thousands are going to hear from me. So take it from the easier, lighter way.
That's a really good advice. And you're much nicer about it than I am, because there's some people I just go straight for, if you're not sharing what you know, why did you bother learning it? And you're being a little bit selfish, don't you think?
Yes. Like I try to come a little bit lighter, I don't know. But yeah, in my head, I have a lot of those different thoughts.
That's funny. That's never my first pass, but if the nice angle didn't work to help somebody, like, why are you being selfish? Well,
yes.
Tell me why you don't care about helping other people.
Right? You're just so mean.
Why are you so selfish? But it's true to a certain extent. It's true, but sometimes it's just hard. It's hard to do that. I tell this story where I had a live show before that wasn't a podcast for when I was doing cannabis marketing. And it was called Cannabis Marketing Live, all puff, no fluff. And I had learned all about, like you, I had taken the class, how to learn how to live stream, how to do this, how to do that. But I could not hit go live. Like, I could not tell people ahead of time. I just couldn't get out of my own head. And I was talking to a friend, and it makes me feel so stupid now when I say it out loud, but he was like, don't you teach? I was like, yeah, I teach classes every week for 4 hours at a time. And is some of that online? I was like, it's in person, but I also teach online, blah, 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 blah. And he was like, how is this different? And for me, it was different because I didn't know who would be watching. And I didn't know who would be seeing it. Whereas in the class, they signed up. They've already paid their college tuition. They're not going to, what they decide to do after that is not on me. But the idea of, and I think a lot of people take this too, is the idea of a live stream, the idea of a podcast is that once it's out there, and you don't have that control. And I think that I was just talking to my group that I'm teaching how to live stream about this now, is that when you're starting out, it's not likely going to be seen by thousands of people if you've been afraid and been hiding yourself.
Sorry to burst those bubbles.
Right. Yeah. I'm sorry to tell you.
Or,
you're not going to go from hiding. Exactly. Sorry. I didn't mean to talk over you. What did you just say?
You're not going to be a chart topper hit right out the gate, most likely.
Right. Yeah. It's going to take some work. You're going to look back at those first episodes of your podcast or of your video or whatever you decide to do someday and be excited that you have them to see how far you've gone.
I love that. Yeah.
And the other thing about that is, for as many as I've done, and I'm sure you can say this too, as many as you've done, the amount of negative comments I've received versus the positive comments, like, while your brain might remember them more, they're not. Like, I don't actually remember because they're very few.
Same. Yeah. I can't recall the negative, which is good. I also have a love folder in my inbox so that when the love reviews come in, you just slide it right over there. So if a negative one comes in, you just go back over to the love folder and there it is.
See, and that's where you're nicer than I am, because mine is called the badass folder.
Oh, I like that. No, that's better. That's better. I might rename mine.
Mine is not the love folder. That would not have actually occurred to me. Mine's this is why you're awesome.
I love that, though. I recently taught she's now 8 years old, but when she was 7, I taught my daughter what the definition of a badass is.
Mm-hmm.
was like, we shouldn't be cussing because you're 7, but let mommy teach you what a badass is. And I'm going to introduce you to some.
Awesome, which is fantastic. So I love the advice that you give to people. One thing I want to talk about, I'm just going to cut right over to it here, is do most people understand the true benefits that can come from being a podcast guest?
I would say no. And that's why not everybody is a podcast guest. Yeah, the benefits, and I think even those who are guests get it, but they don't understand how much more of a benefit it could be if they did something with the interviews after they stopped recording and went live. Mm-hmm. The benefit, first and foremost, you're talking to an audience that doesn't know you already. This is a warm audience on top of that because they already have extended their trust to the host, who has now extended their trust to you. So it's not a cold call for the first time and you're trying to win them over. They already trust what you're going to say because that trust has been built in from the host. And then if you share it, which you should, there shouldn't be an if, it's when you share it with your audience, then there's a ripple effect because you don't know if there's somebody in your audience who's been following you for 2 years and they're right on the cusp of, I want to work with you, I want to buy your product, and I'm just not sure. Oh, wait, this podcast host just had you on and now I get to listen to more of what you have to say. That might seal the deal for them. Mm-hmm. So it's not only reaching a new audience, it's making your already warm audience even warmer. And so the benefits of all of that is just, it becomes that ripple because also for the host, now their show's being shared with your audience and they get new listeners. And it's a win-win that just continues to grow because you also don't know who the audience is now sharing your episode with their friends of, I just listened to this, you should be listening too. And so it just grows immensely by you sharing it and by sharing it not in your Instagram stories for 24 hours, because that is lazy. It is so lazy. In your feed, on your website, on Spotify, all of the places is where you should be sharing them.
That's so funny. And I think it's absolutely true. And there's so many people who don't understand the power of being a guest.
Yeah.
Or honestly, being a good guest. I actually put together a guide to being a guest that I would send out to everybody after I interviewed somebody on my previous show where they took it from their car. So their internet kept dropping. And it was a live video. Oh. One thing, if you're in a building and your internet goes out and it's out of your control. It's another if you decided it wasn't important enough for you to do something besides do it in your car. And it's fascinating to me, to go from that to somebody who actually prepped and got ready and watched or listened to a few episodes before and knows how to be a good guest. Like when it comes time for anything, including recommending people, whether to work with or just as a podcast guest, who's going to get...
Right.
Who am I more likely to say? Absolutely.
And I hear that so often from hosts, especially recently. It's been a lot of, I get it from both sides of the host isn't telling me when my episode goes live. Yeah, hosts, we need to do a better job of making sure that the guest knows so they can share it. Yep. But then from the host saying they didn't even share the interview. And I'm not going to take guests anymore, or I'm not going to take pitches anymore. And my advice to hosts is, you know what? Go stalk them a bit and see, did they share their last interview that they were on? Because if they haven't, then now you know what your expectations can be. They don't share interviews, period. Don't expect them to share yours because it's not going to be any different. But if they're sharing them, just like I practice what I preach. And I will tell you, though, if I can't do it just today because I had 3 interviews go live this week. So like you're in the queue, but you're going to have a place on my website. You're going to be on my media press page. You're in my Spotify. You're going to be in my Instagram feed. Then great. That's what we should be doing. And if you're a host who sees guests not doing it, tell them, you know what? I haven't seen you share any of your podcast interviews. Yeah. Sorry, but it needs to be a give and take. It really does.
That is great advice for both sides, as you said, of that equation, because it's very much a relationship partnership when you go into this, right? It's a time, it's an energy, and it's a labor of love, right? Like,
yeah,
where that starts and where it ends up. So it's one of those things where if you want to be a good guest and be asked and be recommended, that you do some of these things. And the same from a respect standpoint from the host as well. So it's really interesting if you decide to become a podcast, start your own podcast, or to start being a guest on podcasts, because there's more that goes into it than just showing up. Mm-hmm. Because if you're just showing up, you're losing a lot of potential, one, relationship building, two, publicity, really. And yes. Three, a little respect.
A lot. Yeah, a lot. I'm often asked, what's the ROI on podcast interviews? I'm like, what do you put into it? But if you don't put any effort into it, then you're really not putting much investment into it. You've only spent 30 minutes on an interview, and then you expect something big to happen. You need to help it, move it along. It's just like launching a business. You don't launch it and it's an overnight success. You work at it and you make sure that you build upon it. And that's how it becomes successful. It's the same thing with the podcast.
And so I just had 4 questions for you collide in my head. I was like, oh, ask her about that. Ask her about that. Ask her about that. If someone is interested in becoming a podcast guest, how do you recommend they get started?
Figure out what you want to talk on. Figure out your unique speaking topics. So you would not go in saying, I'm a marketing expert. Boring. What is it that makes you unique? And I've created different topics and questions in my book that help guide you through that step, because it is truly the hardest step. And it was the hardest chapter for me to write, because it's something that I do in my head for others. Mm-hmm. And yet to write down, how is it that you come up with this, was really difficult. But, what is your personal journey been? What has it been like through your life? And then what has your career journey been like? Did you just launch a business out of high school? Did you just write a book out of high school and this was it? Chances are no. You did some other things along the way. So what are those things that you can talk about? What signature method or framework do you have to do what you do? What are your unique skills that you've learned along the way? So for example, I could say, yeah, I still jet fuel for 18 years and now I pitch people on podcasts. My unique skill is the relationship building. It's that I listen to what people have to say. I did that for 18 years. I didn't just sell jet fuel. I knew your pain points. I knew where you were going around the world. I knew what events were coming up and how to help you get through those as you're flying your corporate jet. I do the same when it comes to talking to my clients and then listening to podcasts to go, oh, you're missing this part of someone coming on to educate your audience with. So here's that perfect person, and I match them together. So these are all different types of topics that you can come up with and make them unique. Give them titles, because oftentimes they'll turn into the actual episode titles. So make them something that you want to be known for, that you are willing to speak on, and start from there, along with identifying who is it you want to have as your ideal listener, your ideal audience, your ideal client, and go from there to look for podcasts that have those listeners listening already.
That is really good advice. And if you're listening and you have not picked up Michelle's book, you should.
Shameless plug. Thank you.
Shameless plug. And this, I sound like I really am like yelling at people all the time, and I'm not. I'm actually a very nice person. But one of the things that drives me the craziest, there's 2 sides to business owners that drives me crazy. One is when people say everyone's their audience. So when you say, who's your podcast audience? They're like, oh, anybody with ears. Great. Because I've heard that. And the other part that is the opposite is I don't have any competitors, right? Okay, so everyone's your audience and you have no competitors. Cool.
You should be a multi-billionaire then.
Exactly. When you start to look at how you just broke down things, and when you start to look at the way that you help people, I really do think there's a lot of value in that framework you just described, and how someone can help, because I've taken people through something similar. And there's certain points where people will get stuck, right? I don't know. I don't have a framework. I don't know what's unique about me. Are those I haven't opened up your book yet, but are those outlined in there to help people get through that? Or is that something?
Yeah, there's questions for each chapter, and each topic tackles those questions where I tell you this is, and it's funny because one of the initial people who read the book, she had downloaded or bought it, and she reached out to me and went, "This is heavy. There's homework." I was like, yeah, excellent. Then it's not supposed to be easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is why I get paid to do what I do, because it's not easy. And if you struggle with some of this, I always say talk it out with someone. Ask your partner, ask your best friend, hey, this is part of what I think my story is. Do you think it's interesting? Is there a part of my story that I'm missing? Or when I retell this story, what stands out to you the most? Do I need to post that as a reminder on my computer screen so I can make sure I talk about it? Ask other people what they think that truly know you, because that's always easier than it is. When I go back to ask my therapist about the whole inspiration thing, she goes, well, ask them. What is it that inspires them? What is it? What? Okay.
Out loud? You want me to say that out loud?
You mean I'm going to say, thanks. I appreciate that. Now, what exactly is it about me that inspires you, please? So that's difficult. But when you know somebody intimately as a partner or your best friend or something like that, it's much easier to say, hey, can I just bounce this off of you? Tell me what you think. So go ahead and do that to figure out what it is. Think about what you do every single day. How is it that you do it? And I actually had to think about this for myself with the book. And how do I do what I do? And it takes time. But I think as you start writing notes to yourself and throughout the day, once you start thinking about it, then those moments like in the shower come up of, oh yeah, I do this and I do this. Let me write that down. And it'll start to come to you as you think about it.
That's really good advice. I know that I myself, one of the things that I've had to do is take time to document those things and take time to create the badass folder. And the reason why is because I'm always looking forward at what's next, what needs to happen right now, what's next. That stuff, once it's done, it's done. So
I'm the same way.
And sometimes I'm like, ooh, it's the walking out of the burning building, like on the music videos. Another time it's, okay, that was done. That was cool. That's awesome. And then I have to be reminded of, oh yeah, you did this. Oh yeah, you won this award. Remember when or look back like old pictures. And so the badass folder and some of the other things that I've built out for myself are intentionally there to remind me.
We are the same person right now. Luckily, I have a very good friend, Karen, who she has been my business bestie. She's in the book, and she will send me emails reminding me, do you remember when we first met and this is what you were doing? And look at you now. And I need you to pause. And she's like the therapist, that friend that you need. She's not a therapist, but she will remind me of, did you pause to say, wow, look at what I did? Because you should, because I'm the same way. I'm like, okay, great. So I published a book. Now what? Okay, let's get on to the next thing. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, someone asked me about the book and I was like, the book? Oh yeah, that was like 2 years ago. Like I have it on my shelf behind me because I kept forgetting writing a book. Yeah, that's right.
Just a couple things.
Just one or two. But it's so fascinating. So as we wrap up, what advice do you have for somebody who's either starting to be a podcast guest or wants to get started? Like, where do you even go to look to be a podcast guest once they buy your book?
Yeah, I was going to say, buy the book first. And the book is really going to guide you on how to figure out what it is you can speak on, how to find those podcasts, and to do it all in a really inexpensive way, free, basically, besides if you want to buy a Canva type of subscription, get a microphone, that kind of a thing. But simply start. But it doesn't matter if you've never been interviewed on a podcast. Chances are there's somewhere out there on the internet, audio or video of you doing something that you can share as the example that you can have an intelligent conversation with someone else and build upon that, or just create a video to the host you want to pitch. Because if you have absolutely nothing, then create something and put it up there. But you just simply need to start, and you will improve. You will get more comfortable over time. but your job is to start and to share of yourself and to help others with what you have to say, your story, what steps you've taken, the knowledge you have, and to share it.
I love that. I love that. And I'm going to add to that. Don't let the technology stop you.
Yeah, that's all in the book too. So don't worry about it.
Good. Okay, good. Yeah. Because it's one of those things where the book sounds like it has homework and there's heavy lifting in there, but there are things that need to be done. But there also don't need to be done perfectly because you're going to get better as you go.
Yes.
So that is fantastic, Michelle. Can you?
Thank you.
I'm going to have all the links for everything, including the book and the show notes. But can you tell people where to find you? And anything?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
My websites are the mlgcollective.com, and then my personal website's michelleglogovac.com. You can find me on all the social media platforms. Instagram is usually where I am the most, Michelle Glogovac. The podcast is My Simplified Life, and the book is How to Get on Podcasts.
I love that. Thank you so much for being here. And for all of you listening, I can't wait. Please share your podcast guest episodes below with us because we want to know. And thank you for joining us today. We're all about passionately driven business owners and entrepreneurs, guiding you to success in both business and life, because it's never too late to make your business and career work for you and not the other way around. Until next time.